the States. I could leave this hot, steamy jungle hole and take myself back to New York or San Francisco or L.A., even Texas, to the Kingsland Ranch, my father's legacy. Hank King had been a CEO and a real estate baron and a lot of other things, most of which made him obscenely rich. I was his son, but I was a bastard. My mother had been one of King's strings of mistresses. She'd thought she had a golden ticket when she got pregnant. Instead, Hank had dumped my mother, but he'd given me his last name on the birth certificate. My mother had been bitter. When things didn't work out the way she wanted, she'd kept me from Hank and wouldn't give him visitation rights. Hank retaliated with lawyers. Mom retaliated by marrying a different rich man when I was 2 and hiring lawyers of her own. By the time I was a teenager, I was so sick of both of them and the never-ending war that was my home life that I'd enlisted in the military and left the country. I moved up the ranks to special ops. The work was hard and exhausting, and I'd felt like a shell of a human being by the end, but it kept me out of the States and away from the clutches of both my mother and my father. Then my father had died. I hadn't gone to the funeral, hadn't answered any of his lawyer's emails about the will. I told my sister Veronica that there was no way in hell I was coming home for the funeral. Then I deleted my Hotmail address, quit Spec Ops, and come to Panama. It was dull, but no one here knew I was a king. They only knew I was American. I'd been military, I liked tequila, and I could throw a man out the door. Works for me, I told myself. Or at least I'd thought it would. Sweat trickled down my temples and made my t-shirt stick to my back. I scrubbed a hand through my hair and watched as Maki reached up and turned on the boxy old television above the bar. Her shirt rode up as she turned the knob, and one of the other guys at the bar whistled. But I looked at him, and he stopped. Maki and I weren't a steady thing, but I didn't let anyone hassle her. I knew she lived in a tiny place 10 blocks away, where her mother looked after her 4-year-old son while she worked. I knew she sometimes liked a no-strings fuck just like I did, and that her life was too complicated for more. Assholes at the bar were the last thing she needed. The TV blared to life. A baseball game came on, the announcer speaking in Spanish. Maki clicked the antique remote control, and the image flipped to a soap opera. A woman weeping with smeared mascara as she shouted at a man who was leaving and slamming the door. Maki rolled her eyes and clicked the remote again. Kidnapping of heiress Sabrina King. Maki hit the button and the image flicked to 2 puppets dancing on the screen, singing in Spanish. Maki, I said, my voice sharper than I intended. Go back. She looked at me, blinking her long dark lashes. I'd spoken in English, which I didn't usually do with her. Her English wasn't great, but it was good enough, and she caught my drift. She hit the button. Not clear if ransom is a motive. What we do know is that the high-profile reality star was taken from her home during an engagement party thrown for her sister. Hey! One of the men across the bar shouted in Spanish. Put the baseball game back on again. I don't want to see this shit. I barely heard him. I was leaning back on my stool, my attention glued to the crappy TV screen. A female newscaster was speaking in front of a photograph of a gorgeous young woman, her dark hair cascading around her shoulders, her makeup perfect, pink gloss on her smiling lips. She seemed to be wearing a dress made of a few knots of material and not much else. She looked like a spoiled socialite, but she didn't have a socialite's blank, polite expression. Instead, she looked like the kind of girl who could tell you a rude joke and cuss you out. The picture had caught her on the edge of a laugh, as if the photographer had said something funny. I knew that face. I knew that laugh. Jesus. Sabrina King. My half-sister. I had 3 half-sisters. Ronnie and Bee were from one of Hank's wives. Sabrina was from yet another mistress, one he'd married after Ronnie and Bee's mother died.